taken any trips to Mexico, you know that at 2 p.m. in Mexico, they have something that they recognize rest as being good because they have a siesta.
All right, Prophet. Now bring that up. Let's get a definition on siesta. Let's bring that up. And brothers, this is what I want y'all to recognize about realness, right? No other nation, this is what I'm saying. No other nation out of the 12 tribes now have a moment of rest throughout the day. I mean, we're supposed to pray at least 3 times a day, morning, afternoon, and at evening, right? But Issachar, this is a special, unique characteristic on the people, a Hebrew people that was out of the 12 tribes. This is what they do. Verse 15 said, and he saw that rest was good. The prophet said they call it a siesta. Let's see what siesta means.
Siesta, an afternoon rest or nap, especially one taken during the hottest hours of the day in a hot climate.
But look, when I was growing up, Prophetess, my mom said, go take a nap.
Right.
Where did she get that from? In the day.
Yeah, in the middle of the afternoon. And it would normally be around 2 o'clock, but because it was the hottest hour. But now what we really need to bring out, that's awesome, but you have to recognize that the Most High does not know things for any reason. It specifically says that it's a nap or rest taken during the hottest hours of the day in a hot climate. The hot climate gives a geographical location of where someone would be found. And so when we're looking at the scriptures in Genesis 49 and we're verifying who Issachar is, that rest that they found good, which we recognize as a siesta, that again points in the direction of the Mexicans being Issachar. And so it goes on to read in verse 15, and the land that it says, and he saw that rest was good, and the land that it was pleasant. Mexico is a pleasant place. People travel there constantly, and bowed his shoulder to bear, and became a servant unto tribute.
So we know that the Issacharians, the Issacharites, that's what they really are, Issacharites, not Mexicans. We know that they are the most humblest people. They will work for little or nothing.
And tribute means for what, almost pretty much for what, like we give tribute to individuals, and we know that our church-going folks understand tribute as well. That would be any type of wage, anything that the person wanted to give by tribute. And so we know that most of our brothers and sisters of Issachar descent, they will work for little of nothing, and that they have made. It's uncanny how the scriptures just jump out at you because it's a reputation. Everyone knows it. They want to joke about it. Everyone knows that if you want something done, it's the first thing that comes to anyone's mind. But little did you know, because it comes to your mind and they're known and recognized for it, you can find them in the scriptures. Before we go into our online studies, we're going to bring out some historical facts about Issachar real quick. Read verse 28. All right. We go get out of it. Genesis 49, beginning at verse 28. All these are the 12 tribes of Israel, and this is it that their father spake unto them and blessed them. Everyone according to his blessing, he blessed them. No one knew his children more than the father. That's right. No one can override what your mother and your father predict for you in your life on this planet. That's right. And this blessing was even more significant because the Most High chose for his Israelite people, those who would follow his will and his way. They would come out of Israel, which was previously known as Jacob. The characteristics tell it all for me, brothers. I'm with it. All right, brothers and sisters, get ready. Get your paper and pencil down. We're just going to bring out a little history facts about Mexico, okay? And it's going to show the relation between the so-called Negroes or African Americans. This is what it says here. So-called African Americans. So-called African Americans. And Prophet, you can bring out that website that we're going to. You can bring out that if you want to provide that link. But this is a little history back here on Mexico. It's not a lot. It's a little brief moment. After this, we're going to go into the Apocrypha. It's always interesting to know where the history is recorded because certainly we know it's not in our schools. But this is a well-known name. This particular reference is taken from Smithsonian, the Smithsonian Education.org.
Now, the Smithsonian has a museum, brothers and sisters.
Very reputable.
They are the ones that are in charge of most of the world's ancient artifacts.
Yeah, historical ancient artifacts.
It's proven that they have some of the ancient artifacts that belong to the house of Israel.
Absolutely.
Okay, and other artifacts as well. A lot of things that are there that they don't even want us to know about. Okay?
Right.
All right? You can do your research. Research the Smithsonian. Okay? All right, we got 3 paragraphs to read. We'll let the prophets bring that truth out today. We give all praises and honor to the Most High God. Ahaya, Ashel Ahaya. Bless your holy name, O Father.
Right. And so we're reading excerpt written by Colin A. Palmer, and again it's referenced in the Smithsonian Education.org. When I arrived in Mexico about 2 decades ago to begin research on the early history of Africans, and let's remember he's saying Africans because Israelites ran into Africa. And so we need to understand that's where they get that supposed history from, because that's where they took us from. But that is not who we are.
And it's understandable for them to label us like that, but
right.
Understand it now. If I take you from the shores of Jamaica, I might call you a Jamaican.
Absolutely.
If I take you from the shores of Europe, I'm gonna call you a European.
Right.
I mean, whether you're black or white, it don't matter. Wherever I take you from, I might call you from that land.
Absolutely.
They took us from the shores of Africa because, like the prophet said, that was history.
Yeah.
That was biblical history. We ran into Africa fleeing Roman persecution.
Absolutely. And so we need to understand that it makes sense that that's all they have, but they can't give us our history.
They don't know us.
And that's the thing. Let's disqualify them from giving us our history. So, again, back to Colin A. Palmer, A Legacy of Slavery. When I arrived in Mexico about 2 decades ago to begin research on the early history of Africans and their descendants there, a young student politely told me that I was embarking on a wild goose chase.
A young student? I wonder how old this student was.
Young.
Okay.
Mexico had never imported slaves from Africa, he said, fully certain that the nation's peoples of African descent were relatively recent arrivals.
All right, now watch this. When you come across a young student, brother, you got to find out if he's telling the truth. This person didn't know what he was talking about.
Well, first of all, if he's young, how much research has he really done?
What?
You know, and that was one of the things that they often played on us. We're young, so we only know what we know in those years that we could even have understanding. How long has he even had understanding to be saying, about history?
Exactly. Well, what the brother did?
This lack of knowledge about Mexico's African peoples has not changed much over the time. A short while ago, a Mexican engineer, himself of African descent, told me adamantly that the country's blacks were the descendants of escaped slaves from North America and Cuba.
But you couldn't tell this engineer, this older engineer, nothing. He knew for a fact what happened.
Right.
He been there, right?
Mm-hmm. He says these fugitives, he proudly proclaimed, had sought and found sanctuary in free Mexico. And if I might add an insert here, I know that my sister took a trip with her ministry, 5 a.m. prayer, and brought back some powerful pictures and evidence of artifacts found in our brothers, where our brothers are, Issachar, down in Mexico. And so they went through the museum, and it's astonishing. Everything is there. And you know how they have the practice, like they did from Egypt, in knocking the noses off. It was the same thing. They had knocked the noses off, but it was unmistakable. You can knock the nose off all you want to. Really, what you need to do is knock the lip off.
Right.
Because if you had a nose and you still had a lip, it's still done. It's a done deal.
I mean, so she went there. She saw African statues there.
Absolutely. I had pictures. Yeah, I had pictures.
Now, see, this is believable pertaining to Judah. Judah was put on them slave ships.
Absolutely.
Judah got sold all over.
All over. And that's what we need to understand. We think they just came to America, but it was a business.
I'm going to say it because I know some so-called Mexicans, okay? They want to disassociate themselves from their brothers, which is Judah.
Right.
You're not European.
No.
Your skin has become heightened or lightened by your conquerors.
Right.
Just like Ephraim.
Right. And we're getting ready to get into
you
that.
You are from the stock of Israel.
Absolutely. But their features are still prominent. The Israelite
Negroid.
Yeah, Negroid features are still prominent. Even in their makeup, and how their body build is so similar. Even in our dietary.
You can't escape it. Look, Mexicans, you got soul. We know where you're from, okay?
Right.
We know.
Right.
All right. Go ahead, Prophetess.
The historical record, of course, tells another story. In the 16th century, New Spain, as Mexico was then called.
New Spain, right?
Right. It was then, at that time, it was called New Spain. So these are, as Elder stated, your conquerors are now, naming the land or calling it whatever, called it New Spain until they came up with Mexico or however. New Spain, as Mexico was then called, probably had more enslaved Africans than any other colony in the Western Hemisphere.
Wow.
Blacks were present as slaves of the Spaniards as early as the 1520s. So that lets you know that they were slaves of the Spaniards because the Spaniards conquered them. These are the individuals that they mixed with, which changed the characteristics that we see presently today over time. Over the approximately 300 years it lasted, the slave trade brought about 200,000 Africans to the colony. Many blacks were born in Mexico and followed their parents into slavery. Not until 1829 was the institution abolished by the leaders of the newly independent nation.
Okay, so they abolished that. They wanted that land to be straight up Mexico, so they stopped doing it right there.
Right.
But that's a little touch point on the history of Mexico, brother. You have involvement with your brother Judah.
Right.
There's an involvement. And we're going to talk about some similarities before we even go into the Apocrypha real quick, okay? In Babylon, what we call United States, in America, all right? In America, we have so-called Negroes, African Americans that live in ghettos.
Right.
In those ghettos, they have been infected with drugs, crime, prostitution, all of those things, poverty. That affects the Negroes in the ghettos in America. Now, truth be said, now that bad case of circumstances has an effect. Everyone is not in poverty. Everyone is not downtrodden, but the majority are. Okay? All right? Let's look at the similarities of Mexico today.
Mexico what?
Mexico City, the Mexican citizens in Mexico City today. That's kind of similarity. All right? You guys have ghettos too.
Right.
Okay? They have you fighting amongst each other over drugs.
Right.
Your land is rich now.
Right.
It's rich over there. It is. It's rich. But you're plagued with the same thing as the Judites are here in America. Poverty, prostitution, high crime rate, same thing. Look at the Haitians in their land. The similarities are for a reason. The characteristics of what's happened to all of the tribes is for a reason.
Right. The characteristics identify really pretty much who the Most High's people are, who the tribes are. And because every country that we go to, it's the same thing, the Aboriginals. And they're identified as Reuben.
Now where's their homeland, Prophetess? Where is it supposed to be? In Australia, right?
In Australia, yeah.
They have been a downtrodden people as well, right? Isn't it funny, brothers and sisters, that we're seeing that according to the Bible, the Most High's people in these days, they're not the one in rulership, right? They're not the one in leadership, are they? They're not ruling the world. They're not the one in power. That's prophecy. Didn't that happen with Rebecca when she had her son? Yeah. Esau came out first.
Well, he was supposed to come out. Well, yeah, he came out first, but Esau, Jacob held on to his heel.
Right, Jacob held on to his heel. So when Christ come back, the new rulership is going to be up under Jacob. All right? When Christ come back this time, the new kingdom, the new rulership is going to be up under Jacob. Esau is ruling right now. Okay? So when you look at the Jewish people over in that land mass that we call home thousands of years ago, over there, they're the ones that's leading. They're the ones that's not in poverty. They're the ones that have blasphemed that land right now. Okay? Brothers and sisters, this is